Welcome to the Before Brunch podcast. I'm Caitlin Davey.
I'm Casey Fitzgerald.
And we are your definitive inside track to anything and everything that's happening around Dubai.
And we're basically going to be with you every Friday morning chatting everything interesting that's going on in Dubai.
So Casey, what's everyone talking about at the moment?
You know what's this story that's massively in the media at the moment? Massively in the media. We posted it and it's gone viral, so I don't know how it's doing for other publications. But it's an ADNOC basically sent out a message that they've got 3 new updates. And one of them that people seem to care a lot about is the fact that you will now have to pay extra if you want someone to fill your petrol pump.
How much extra do you have to pay?
It's a good question. They didn't go into specifics. No one in the comments was asking about how much extra you'd have to pay. Everyone was just literally went off on them.
So, this is ADNOC, which is in Abu Dhabi. Mm-hmm. Do we think the Dubai fuel stations are going to follow suit?
You just have to question why they brought it in. Because if it's a petrol station and they're either looking at ways to, monetize a little bit more, and it costs a little bit more. So if I'm not going to, ADNOC is not struggling, but if other petrol stations are looking for further ways to monetize, they may look at possibilities. So yeah, of course it's a possibility.
It's kind of interesting because I remember when I was younger in Australia, you had the fuel pump attendants and they got phased out. So maybe the UAE is going the same way now?
I mean, I guess they're paying how much extra per person to have out there. It's not the ideal climate, so I can't imagine people are loving coming into work every day. So it's definitely a possibility that they are looking to phase it out. And how would it work if you have to pay extra? I mean, is there going to be one pump for people that are getting it paid and then...
There must be, right? Separated.
So then you're just going to go for the smaller queue?
Yeah, I would definitely pay more if it means I don't have to queue up like that ridiculous petrol station in Tecom of Hesse Street.
Yeah.
Never have I ever not had to queue there. I was there once at 4 in the morning on my way to a run and there was still a queue. I was like, how am I in a queue for petrol at 4 in the morning?
Is that the one that has Pavel's? Because I was going to be like, that's a popular pump, and it's at the Pavel's pizza place.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's open at 4 a.m. I was there for 2 hours.
The Pavel's is like, oh, good to know.
But what was interesting was that the comments went crazy because they were basically saying it's getting too expensive. They were saying you're bringing over your Western ways. It was just like, literally, I've never seen one post go off on so many tangents in the comments.
People get angry about this stuff, and I think it's hinged to the fact that living here is great for some very specific reasons. The reasons it's great to live here is the huge amount of service you get. It's not always great service, but there's always a lot of service. So in petrol stations, you don't have to get out of the car. It's nice. It's very plush living compared to other places. It's the never-ending valet at every hotel. We live our lives in 5-star hotels, and we live our lives sitting in the car while the petrol's being pumped, and it's that life I think people are worried about losing, worried about going back to reality maybe.
I think it depends if people are going to make the choice, but I think one petrol station in a different emirate saying that they're going to maybe charge, or they're going to charge for petrol stations, shouldn't get people worrying about reality sinking in.
But it's all Abu Dhabi petrol stations. And Abu Dhabi being the biggest emirate, it's a big...
Maybe it would follow on.
And ADNOC, I believe, has petrol stations in other emirates too.
So they have right to complain.
Not right to complain exactly, but I do think it's a sign of things to come.
And it's not even the number one sign. It's kind of like I wouldn't say domino effect to quote people, but it was like first that and now this. And there's just a couple of different things that are making life more expensive, even though they say that rent has just gotten cheaper, but I haven't heard that.
So this is interesting, and I hear this a lot. People are saying it's getting expensive and everyone's leaving. Only one friend has recently left. Only one person I know has recently left, and it wasn't due to the cost of living. I still think life here is cheaper than elsewhere. The rent is high, yes, but petrol's cheaper. Going out day-to-day life for me is cheaper than in Australia.
Oh, that's so funny that you say that, because when I first moved and I was in Abu Dhabi for 2 years and I lived in Khalifa, which is a suburb, and I thought living there was so cheap. You know, you could go out at the weekends, but your supermarket cost was very inexpensive. Petrol obviously didn't cost too much. But as soon as I moved here, and since then, I've noticed that I literally keep my money in my wallet. Everything costs. You have your daily lunches, which can cost, if you're not careful, nearly 100 dirham. You have your breakfast at the weekends, which can cost nearly 100 dirham, which I wrote an opinion piece about. I felt so strongly about it. You have going to the mall, like I think all of the high street fashion that I would go to, like Zara, Topshop, way more expensive than their European siblings. So yeah, I wouldn't agree with you. I think it's a pretty pricey city to live in.
So 2 points I'll make there, because I'm sure we will have some active commenters piping up. One, I think a lot of that is optional.
Yeah.
You can get cheaper lunches and clothes. And also, in Australia, H&M, dirham for dollar, I would say Australia is 50% more expensive than H&M in UAE.
Oh my gosh.
So I know it's a European brand, so it's cheaper in Europe. I was also recently in Singapore, and that's very expensive. And the rent is on par with Dubai, and the food and living is on par. But it's still, there were things that are cheaper in Dubai, and I was there going, oh my gosh, is that really how much that costs here? Because there's no mitigating factors. Whereas in Dubai, I think, yes, things like alcohol and clothing can be more expensive, but that's offset by the insanely cheap petrol, the dirham a kilo cucumbers. You should just live off cucumbers. They're insanely cheap.
I mean, yeah, petrol is one thing, but going to the supermarket, now it depends where you shop and where you live, but even that I think is expensive. And you said these things are optional. Yeah, going for breakfast is optional, going for lunch is optional, and I know this, but to live a life where you're kind of like able to treat yourself a little bit, you can't in Dubai because it's expensive. And I like to treat myself.
I think life in Dubai is a treat. Like, there is
you sound like a soundbite.
I think there's a lot of treats here that I would never in Australia go and get my nails done once a month. And
it's expensive here.
It's not compared to Australia.
Okay, well, I'm coming from Ireland, where if I go home, everything's just a lot cheaper.
Really?
Really,
That's
really
interesting.
And things like, I know I'm so lucky because I live in the marina and I can go downstairs and go for a run, so I'm not a member of a gym, but I've looked at different price classes, and a lot of gyms on average are charging 100 dirham per class, which that's now if you're not doing a monthly membership, but to me that's outrageous.
I'll tell you what is very expensive here compared to Australia.
Everything. No.
CrossFit. It's more than double the price. And it's not one specific gym, it's across the board. They're all double the price of the ones in Australia.
CrossFit is very pricey, I hear. Why is that?
So it's a trademarked kind of sport, and because it's heavily regulated and branded, it's more expensive because you're paying kind of for the quality, I guess, despite many people's opinions on the matter. And for me, I know it's expensive, but for me it's cheaper than personal training, but I get the same effects and results. So it gives you, like, the classes are always capped at 15 people. The weights and aerobics classes in some of the chain gyms, it's like the cap is 30 people, so it's half the size. So I guess you expect to pay more?
Yeah, so that's one. But no, I do think overall, Dubai is known as being an expensive city.
Yeah.
True that.
So is most of Australia then. So Casey, have you been on any good dates lately?
It's funny because since we started this podcast, it seems to be a recurring theme, but there's always something to say. And that you mention it, I went on a date like a week or two ago, and it was really refreshing because he's from Australia and he just moved, and I hate to say it, but he just had that kind of newness about him. He didn't have any kind of preconceived notions about, if the way everyone is, if where you're from, you're a stereotype, and what you do is a stereotype, and all. I think that whenever you meet someone in Dubai, people just kind of like assume something about you based on who you are, what you do.
And where you go on weekends, there's a very specific type of person who goes to Zero Gravity, who goes to Society, which is sadly closing, who goes to Barasti.
Yeah, and then who goes to the clubs. Yeah, so it was really refreshing meeting something that's a bit different, as opposed to the usual Dubai douchebags, which you know all about because you wrote that post. That kind of, it's so funny, every time it's reshared and reshared and reshared, because people just, people empathize, people...
Everyone knows, everyone identifies, because everyone knows someone who falls within these 17 criteria, right?
Absolutely. I mean, everyone has stories of their own, and we have all these dating apps to thank for it, because if we didn't have the dating apps, we wouldn't be getting out to meet these special type of guys, and everyone knows what a Dubai douchebag is, right? So how would you classify one?
Oh, it's got to be the guy in the polo with the moccasin slide shoes with no socks, collar up. He's at Barasti. He misses leg day.
Vaster as...
And he tends to work in either finance or real estate.
And I'll tell you all about it.
So I guess other features of these guys, they like to stalk cabin crew like a prey. Okay. Particularly at ladies' nights.
And teachers.
Yes, the two standards that we talked about last week, the only identifiers for females apparently in this city. I think that can happen here though. I have a lot of single friends, and conversations tend to centre around this here for a good time, not a long time. And we did another article, Why You'll Never Meet the One in Dubai, and it is because of a transient nature of the city. Because everyone's always looking over your shoulder at the next best thing, because there's so many options in this revolving door. And I think all hope is not lost, and a lot of people responded to these articles and said, no, I met someone great. And
I was just going to say that there was huge kickback after that, You'll Never Meet the One, and it was really nice kickback because people shared their lovely stories of the romance they're having in Dubai and stuff, so it was a nice little kickback for once.
Yeah, so you don't need to be all jaded. There is hope, case.
I'm not totally jaded, it just came out like that.
Just partially jaded.
It's early. But, he tells you he's out at a ladies' night. This is it. So, I go out on a ladies' night on a Tuesday night because you have the option to go to a nice place, have some drinks with your friends, and it's free. So, I'm happy to get up, get dressed, whatever. Why do guys go out on a Tuesday night? Why is it packed with men?
To meet the ladies.
Yeah, but Well, I'm going out because I like the experience and I'm going to have a chat with my friends and go to someplace different. Are guys literally just going to pull?
I assume so.
Isn't that crazy?
Why? So well, I guess it's a guaranteed party, because if you're going to Mahiki on a Tuesday night, you know it's going to be open till 3, it's going to be packed to the rafters, and everyone's going to have a drink in their hand, even though it's a Tuesday.
Yeah. I think I'm old, but they're not saving themselves for the weekend.
No, they don't need to.
Okay, so if I was new to Dubai and I was chatting to you, where would you recommend I go to avoid Dubai douchebags? Where is that place that just has nice, genuine people?
Oh, if I knew that, I'd be there. I
think there's some nice spots.
The AFC seems to have a different caliber of man, because it's the after work drink theme instead of the going out on a Tuesday night and getting smashed. So avoid places like Mahiki, like Pier 7, like you know, those really heavily populated places.
Yeah, zero gravity.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
So if you go anywhere where guys can take their shirts off and do take their shirts off, I think it's not the right setting.
Well, there's your perfect marker of how you know if he's normal or not, if he's got his shirt off. You know, he's way too into himself, so just move on.
But I think DIFC is a good shout, and there's places that are lock stock. Apparently, I think some people have had success.
Success?
Yeah.
I just went to the new one on JBR. It's double size, and there's a pretty nice crowd there. Sorry, I'm just reading your post, and it says, he calls everyone babe.
Yeah.
That's an amazing one. So true.
There's so many. 17 signs of dating a Dubai douchebag. We'll put the link in the comments, and you can check it out if you haven't already. It was a lot of fun to write this one, and every male friend of mine sent me this and said, "Did you write this about me?"
Well, why would you write about them if they're your friends?
Well, citing examples of them being douchebags.
That's interesting that there was enough examples to cite.
Yeah, it's interesting that they all thought it was about them.
So, it's Friday. We've touched dating again. But what else are the people talking about?
So, apart from the common recurring theme of dating, this is really interesting app that's been released in the UAE called Buy Hours, where you can rent a hotel by the hour rather than the night.
I wonder who their target market is.
I don't think I need to go there.
Okay.
But there's, I think, a few dozen hotels on this app. And it's great in terms of transit because you know when you have a stopover and it's something crazy like 12 hours where it's enough to leave the airport, not really enough to check into a hotel and get some proper sleep, not really enough to do touristy stuff and you just want to shower. So this, I think, is perfect for that.
Okay, do we have any idea what hotels are listed?
I can find out for you shortly.
So what you're saying is a very practical thing. They also have sleep pods in Dubai Mall, so actually if you're coming into town and you don't want to pay for a hotel rate, you can go and sleep in those pods for like 60 dirham an hour or something. They charge extra for a pillow.
Do they have showers?
No, but this, I'd just be curious to know about the hotels because I don't think the higher end hotels are going to do a room change.
They are not, I can confirm. I'm just switching it to dirhams. So you can rent these in packs of 3, 6 or 12 hours. So it's not just one, obviously. So you can't just rent it for a shower.
Okay.
I've had that as a problem sometimes when I'm somewhere where there's no showers, like at a beach workout and I need to go somewhere after and I'm going, where can I shower?
Fair enough, and as Dubai is, like you said, a transit city, people coming through, it would be handy, but I don't think a hotel room is the best place to shower. I think malls, like the bathrooms in Mall of the Emirates and some of the malls here are so fancy, I'm surprised they don't have showers.
Okay, so these are all the kind of booking.com dusty, smoky smelling places up in Dubai and Dira, which were incidentally marked the lower end of the spectrum for best places to live. They are very handy to the Dubai airport though, so I guess that's the appeal. So there's hotels like the Eureka Hotel. I have stayed there when I was living in Abu Dhabi and was up here for a concert. Fortune Dira Hotel, Palm Beach Hotel, Dubai, Claridge Hotel. So these are ranging from the cheapest is 80 dirhams for 3 hours. That's the Eureka Hotel.
Wow.
And then you go up to about 200 dirhams for 3 hours.
So 3 hours, I'd be a little bit dubious about why someone wants a hotel room for 3 hours realistically. But that being said, like you said, after a concert, if you're traveling anywhere outside of Dubai, even I have friends who live in Sharjah and they come in to Dubai for a night out and I think it's like 100 dirham taxi up and down, that's a guess. But for them to be able to pop into a hotel for 3 hours, get a bit of shut-eye and then head back, I mean...
I think it's going to be best value if you have weird timings because hotel timings are so rigorous. It's checking at 2, check out at noon. So you're paying for that whole time, even if you're not using it. You know, if you land at 1 a.m, you don't want to pay for that entire time, but then you have to be out at midday. Incidentally, actually, that reminds me. So one of the Trip by Wyndham hotels does a full 24-hour package. So if you check in at 3 a.m, you can check out at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
If you check in at 6 p.m, you check out at 6 p.m. So it's a full 24-hour deal. That's pretty good.
It's interesting that they've brought that in. I'm just wondering, there's obviously a big market of people who want to check in at all hours for short amounts of time.
And get their money's worth, I guess, is the other thing. not so much a destination, but more a convenience offering. There is a 4-star one, I've just checked, for 6 hours available. So this is the Royal Ascot Hotel, and this is 243 dirhams for 6 hours.
I mean, it's unreal if you're in the hotel and you want to, but is there not visa issues to leave sorry, I mean in the airport, is there not visa issues to leave the airport for 6 hours? And if you're in Dubai for 6 hours, you may want to go further afield. But yeah, is there any problems that they come up against trying to get out?
I'm not sure. I guess it would depend on your visa status, your passport, how long you're here, because a lot of countries get visa on arrival, so then they can nip out for a couple of hours. And like you said, if people are in Sharjah for a concert or something, even living in Marina, these are at the Dira end of town. If you were at Irish Village for a concert, and didn't want to commute all the way back, you could just nip into one of these for a 6-hour kip.
What's the website called?
It is called ByHours, BYHOURS.com.
I wonder if it's one of those apps or websites that has done really well elsewhere, so it's kind of like a trial and test.
I think it originated, when I opened it was in Spanish, so I'm going to assume it's Spanish.
It's like Airbnb, which is obviously huge now, and I remember a couple of years ago, some of my family was coming to stay here and we were looking at, let's say there's 7 of us, so it was tricky to find an Airbnb. We couldn't find an Airbnb unless it was like a huge villa, which was way out of price. But if you look now, I know places have to get permission from their landlords and certain permissions, but it's just blown up, which is cool because it's such an interesting way to see a city rather than the hotel stay.
There is something about staying in a hotel though that's just fun, it's just nice.
True, especially in Dubai, because it's all those like glam 5-star hotels that you will not find anywhere else. But if I'm going to a city like Istanbul or Barcelona, sometimes it's fun to stay in somewhere a little bit quirky and a little bit interesting, and that could be right in the centre of town. I'm like, I don't know what I'm thinking of, some like beautiful place, like on a terrace, a glass of wine. I'm on my holidays already.
I guess they're handier too with, if you have, say, 6 of you going on a trip and you want to stay together, you don't want to have to get 3 individual hotel rooms. It's better value for money.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to, and some of these Airbnbs are made specifically for you to stay, and they'll like make sure you have all your amenities. You'll have probably a guided tour of the city. Sometimes the guides are so great, and it's definitely a much more affordable option.
So I have a question.
Shoot.
Why does Dubai not have backpacker hostels?
It's funny that you asked that, because my building, I'm pretty sure it's got like a Airbnb type of a hostel. I think there's rooms, but in general, no idea. Do you know the answer to your question?
No, I've had a lot of discussions about it, because I was saying, because I went to this beautiful, beautiful retreat, Alma retreat out in the desert, and it almost has, it's high end, but it's very communal, like everyone sits and dines together, and there's like a lot of crisscross chatting and meeting new people. It's that communal feel. And when I went there, I was like, why doesn't Dubai have more of this kind of, that hipstery, artsy feel where people are younger and exploratory? And I think it's a few things. I think there's quite cheap hotels here already.
Eureka.
Dubai doesn't necessarily want to attract a lower income tourist. I think, Dubai is glitz and glamour and 5-star beautiful hotels, Burj Al Arab, Armani, iconic. So they may be not looking for that lower income, because a backpacker won't inject as much money into the economy. That's a suspicion.
I don't know.
The sharing of rooms, you'd have to separate female and male, and then maybe you'd get too much of, you wouldn't get backpackers, you'd just get lower income people looking for cheap rent, because the rent's quite expensive.
Interesting. But I don't know about because male and female hostels, they separate the rooms anyway. It's funny that you mention it, because recently, is it the Jumeirah group have announced like a 350 dirham hotel, or like a more affordable Jumeirah, which sounds amazing. Rove Hotels have just announced a similar 350 dirham isn't super cheap, but a similar low price. In terms of backpacking hostels, I don't know why.
Because it'd be, so 350 is good, that's 2 people, that's 175 dirhams each. That's still more than a backpacker. Backpackers in Australia are $25, they're less than 100 dirhams. They are a great resource because you meet people who are travelling and give you tips. Even homestays are quite popular abroad. I don't know whether it's down to security, whether it's down to licensing and you just can't, or whether it is down to, you'll not get the right ambience here. I don't know.
But it's funny, I have seen on the streets, like, you know, that kind of backpackery, big trousers, huge bag. So they're obviously like in transit. But I do think that Rove hotels, like, try and model themselves on that. They've got a big, model themselves in a way that has communal areas for people to chill, and it's open Wi-Fi downstairs, and they've got kind of affordable BBQ evenings, and it's not backpacker prices, but in terms of a stay downtown or a city centre stay for someone coming through, it's pretty perfect. But I'd say probably the best option for backpackers is Airbnb at the moment.
Or these kind of cheaper with the buy hours options, and there are places that are 100 dirhams or 150 for a night on booking.com. But I'd rather go to a backpackers in a way, because I feel like, sure, you get a nice personal space, but they're a lot cleaner than some of the places that you might go to in Dubai and Dira.
But maybe that's interesting, because if you're saying it's 150 dirham for some of these hotels, if I'm a backpacker coming into the city and I don't want to spend that much money, you're kind of easy, you don't really care what the standard is. And 150 dirham, like you said, is similar to Aussie prices. I think Irish prices would be like 100, 150 for a night, especially if you're going to get a room to yourself. So maybe people who've looked into it know that they can't undercut that. So they just haven't bothered.
So question answered then.
Question answered, but also new business opportunity. Catering Caselin's hostel.
I think I'll stick with the 3-star. That actually, it's interesting you mention it. The Jumeirah Zabil house is Jumeirah's new venture into the 3-star world, but it is not 3-star like you'd imagine it. It's absolutely spectacular. It's very millennial, which suits me, because, you know, Jumeirah, you imagine the kind of white tablecloths and the gold-plated everything in the Burj Al Arab, and Jumeirah Al Naseem and all those beautiful places. Shout out to Jumeirah Al Naseem, where we shot our cover photos.
Where we were the most extra that ever there was.
Yeah, and we still are. But this Zabil house is about the surroundings, so they give you bikes to ride around the destination. It's very Instagrammable.
Very Instagrammable.
The most important thing, as we discussed before. Every business needs to have Instagram in mind now.
This is true. Location?
So they do, this is a new brand, but it's in Al Seif, and they've based the whole of the hotel on kind of spilling out. So there's lots of Arabic touches throughout. There's this beautiful kind of urban street art version of the sheikhs, an artwork of the sheikhs' profiles, and then there's Arabic written on the lights, on the ceiling in fairy lights. So it still feels like you're in Dubai, you know, it gives you that essence of the city without kind of sacrificing on the quality, I think.
And it's a very nice area.
Yeah,
Al
Seif, I feel like I never knew about properly.
It's new.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's another city walk, kind of. It's Miras is developing it, and it's just beautiful and overlooks the creek.
I cannot keep up. And we work in a job where you need to be keeping up with all these new developments. I mean, I've only recently visited, what's it called? I only recently visited Le Maire for the first time, which is huge, fabulous. And we say Instagrammable, like it's nearly there for Instagram, like everything. There's beautiful chairs, there's little coffee shops, there's, rather than what I thought was kind of cool, rather than having the mainstream restaurants like your Cheesecake Factory and your Shake Shack, they've got all kind of cute, quirky, different places to eat, which I think is a different feature to the usual Miras developments. But in terms of keeping up with Dubai, it's hard, man.
It is. It's exploding. It's great to watch, but it's literally a full-time job to keep up with it. And we struggle to keep up with it, even though we're writing about this stuff every day. But it's fun, you spoiled for choice, which is always nice.
Yeah, I mean, like the new malls that are being unveiled and the new recreation parks and the new facilities. It's never ending.
So actually, I was wondering this. What's your favourite mall, speaking of malls? The greatest of them all.
The greatest of them all. My favourite mall, and this will probably get a shot in the head, my favourite mall is Mall of the Emirates. Because I used to live in Barsha, so I would take the metro there quite regularly. And if you go through the huge Carrefour, so the huge Carrefour, I could do my weekly shop when it wasn't busy. I mean, avoid it like the plague on a Saturday afternoon.
Friday morning is the best time to go to the supermarket.
I think like early week, and I was a teacher, so I was finishing school at like 3:30, so I could skip that. And then I like the Zara there, which is huge. So that is my criteria. What about you?
I am an Ibn Battuta loyalist.
Yeah.
It's big enough, but not too big. It has a massive Carrefour. It has all my favourite shops. Shout out to Bath and Body Works. They're actually putting one in Marina Mall.
You are obsessed with Bath and Body Works.
And I'm so glad there's one in Marina Mall because that's closer to my house.
When those candles go on sale though, it's like Christmas comes early.
They're so good. I love them. I have too many. It's an addiction.
There's actually one that's lit right now. Yeah.
On that happy note, might go light a candle and then head off to brunch.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone have a wonderful weekend. We will be with you every week before brunch. Let us know your thoughts on the Lovin Dubai social pages and what mall is your favourite.
Yep.
Should we take a poll? We'll take a poll of what mall everyone loves.
It's interesting because I live beside Marina Mall and people have always said, what's your favourite? And because people quite like it because it's small, but I just don't think it's good enough.
I think it's got everything you need and it's nice and quiet. It's never overwhelming.
I think Zara is my main kind of, I just need that. It's not there.
Yeah, I do need a Bath and Body Works.
So everyone has maybe that store that they need.
H&M, New Look, Bath and Body Works. And I'm set.
Yeah. So what is your favourite mall?
Yes, feel free to disagree with us at Lovin Dubai. Casey, what's your handles?
At CFitsFits, and you can find us, which is very exciting. We're now on iTunes, so you can subscribe. We're on SoundCloud, Stitcher, and
YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube.
Lovin Dubai.
With some nice pictures.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Have a great weekend, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Happy brunch.